Welcome everyone to our final episode on 4X Week. And I am pleased today to bring along with me on this final session my partner Katrina Starnes, straight from Indiana. How are
Yes,
you,
hi.
Katrina?
Good. How are you doing today?
I am well, thank you, and welcome. It's fantastic to have you here. So, let me start by introducing myself. For those who are new to this, my name is Cory Davison. I'm the co founder of For Experience, and along with Katrina, we started For Experience years ago.
Mhm.
And our passion is partnering with companies transforming their alignment of people, data, and systems to deliver experiences that drive results, because that is what it's all about. And 4X Week is a roundtable event and an opportunity to learn from your peers and become inspired by their successes. So, you are hearing over this week, you've heard from real people who are focused on human centric design to transform their companies by leveraging the holistic connection between customer, employee, brand, and user experiences. So please, we welcome you to share your comments, be kind and courteous, of course, and you can ask questions as well. We are live streaming today from Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube, and you can also find us in our podcast on For Experience Roundtable. And if this is your passion, then you have found your tribe, right? To learn more about For Experience Roundtable, I invite you to visit the For Experience com/roundtable, and it's just easy to join and it's free. So we're so grateful for all the wonderful panelists that who have shared such rich insights this week. And today my partner Katrina and I have a special treat for every one of you. It's really about the so what, right? And I am excited to share the 4 principles to unlock human centric experience and to grow your organization as a result as well. So let's get started. First off, I want you to meet Katrina for those who
Hello.
haven't seen her in a while. So,
Yes. It's so great to be here. This is such an exciting topic. I have loved listening to all the panelists this week, the passion they have shared, and the ways that they have integrated these things inside their organizations has been absolutely inspiring.
absolutely. It is great. I believe, part of our purpose with the roundtable is for those who are striving to bring more customer centricity and bring, more of that human centric design within the companies, to know that they're not alone in
Yeah,
their quest, right? And
absolutely.
And,
Yeah.
and we've heard those common themes throughout, right, Katrina? With
Mhm.
not only during this week, but in different events that we have hosted in the past as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one of those things where it can be somewhat of a lonely journey sometimes. You carry that banner and that flag. So it's exciting to hear all the work that's being done.
That's great, and this is where where research meets customer experience and all these wonderful things. So we're going to talk about those 4 principles on how to really build that to unlock that human centric experience design and how to grow your organization. So for those who are listening, please comment on what does this mean to you and how would you apply this in your organization. We'd love to hear that. We
Yeah.
want this to be extremely made for you. So we have some talking points here as well, but
Mhm.
we want it to be all about your experience. So we have heard different topics, and one of the first ones is about you. I'm just going to share some of the things that have come up as a result of the different conversations that we have, and and it's really about one of the first principles that we believe is going to help your organization in that human centric experience design is
Mhm.
that you start with discovering the whole picture.
Mhm.
Right? Katrina, what does this mean to you?
Well, when we've chatted about this week, it really reminded me of that famous folk tale from India that I'm sure a lot of people have heard. We talk about the elephant in the room, so to speak. It's that tale that talks about the six blind men who are observing an elephant, and each one is at a different point on the elephant. And one says, "Oh, this is like a wall," and this one says it's a spear, and this one says it's like a tree, and this one says it's like a rope, and one like a snake, and one like a fan, because they've touched all these different aspects of the elephant, and they all argue among each other about how they have the correct view of what an elephant is, and they're each partly right, but all of them are wrong. And it can feel like that when you are looking from one particular aspect of an organization. It is that whole idea of completely taking a step back, taking off any blindfolds that you might have, and really trying to digest and discover that holistic picture. And it's an exercise. It is not something that just is going to come naturally, because in order to learn the truth, it's like all of those parts have to come together. And that acknowledging the limited experience and partial perspectives that often exist, and just acknowledging those limitations, and making sure that we're not just saying this is the only way, right, to see this particular piece, and recognize that diversity of the different individual perspectives is really what's going to provide that holistic view. Slowing down, taking time to hear those multiple viewpoints across that organization, so where you're departing from. Because I think there's so much pressure, right, to hurry up and just do anything, that you can actually end up shooting all these different directions and not actually making holistic progress. And that's where I think, let's take time and discover the elephant a little bit and see where we're going. So that is what really resonated with me when we were talking and listening to all the panelists this week, is that all of them really did take the time to say, where are we departing from? And listened to a lot of different voices in order to truly understand that.
That is so important. It really resonates with me. In my experience, personally, that one of the first moments or one of the aha moments when I realized is like, oh, we're all looking at the same problem differently, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was in my previous organization, and I was in the strategy role. So, I was kind of like, very high level looking at it. But and looking at market insights and such. But one of the things that really emphasized it for me is that we had all of these internal clients, right? So that's how I refer to my colleagues, all of these different departments. So we're servicing marketing, strategy, of course, the products team, the customer experience team. So you get this view. And I think it was a perfect opportunity for me to actually learn and see that everybody had the same concern, and nobody was wrong. They were all looking at it from their area of expertise,
mm-hmm.
and from the lens that they had visibility to it as well.
Right.
And it's easier said than done, to build empathy across different silos in the organization, which becomes, it's just natural that that's going to happen. Everybody not has their area of expertise.
Exactly.
But then the challenge was more of in this case was, we were looking at, customer satisfaction scores, had dipped because we had just relaunched a new software go-to-market strategy, right?
Right.
So it was like, we have gone from offering, free software to now actually charging for it.
Yeah.
But everybody was looking at it from their lens. But it was like step one, and it doesn't happen naturally, was getting everyone on board in the room, right? And having those discussions, guided discussions, and building empathy instead of resistance, right?
Yes.
Because saying it's like, oh, the issue is the website, so the website team is like, oh, no, it's like, it's the product. And it's like, no, it's not the product, support, right? And once you start peeling the onion and you start going through all of these different layers of barriers, you start realizing that it's like, oh, it's a holistic view, right? The customer at the center is experiencing this. What about if we look at it from that lens?
Right, from that perspective.
From that perspective. So that was for me when my passion actually began, for this part about discovering the whole picture. And instead of looking at things from the lens of where I was sitting, my area of expertise was conducting research. Right. I really wanted for research to become something more than just another metric, another document, right, on
Yes,
the shelf, or on the drive, right, on the shared drive or something like that. Just
right.
something
Yes.
that would cause impact. Has anyone in the audience felt like this before, right? That this is it is real and it happens in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So really, in this case, what would be some strategies that we have used in the past? So this we're talking about the first principle: discover the whole picture.
Mm-hmm.
What's a natural place to start?
Yeah, and really, it's conversation. It's conversation. Really engaging with the different areas and stakeholders. It really segues nicely into our next point, which
Yes,
is no, don't no, come down from the ivory tower, right?
yes,
Don't just stay. And I think, and it is, especially when there's demands and pressures, but it is engaging where all of that stuff, getting into the mix of where those challenges exist, listening to the calls on a call center, walking the floor, reading all the verbatims that obviously they come in on the surveys, right? Like people will write you a book if they have a strong feeling. So take the time, right, to read through those and engage in the focus groups or in-depth interviews. Listen to them and observe. If this is a retail environment, go out and watch, the folks walking through the store, listening to those feedbacks. Even just going out on social media and doing a hashtag search will often give you some really great insight. People are going to share their thoughts there,
yes,
uh, you know, but don't stay isolated. Go and talk to the frontline employees. Go and talk to the departments that's your internal client, saying, hey, I want to just have a discovery conversation about what are your biggest challenges, what's on your roadmap of what are you being mandated? What's your goal for this quarter or for the next 12 months? How can I be of help to you? What are the answers that would, help you sleep better at night, right?
yes.
What's keeping you up and how can we maybe address that issue so that that particular issue can be solved? And I think, those are the things of that engagement, that real connection. People will share their burdens if they know that you are going to listen and that you are actually going to come alongside and try to help and solve. And I do think, as you talked about, everyone's individual area of genius and their expertise,
Yes.
honoring that, saying, hey, you know what, this is what you live day in and day out. I'm not living that. I need you to tell me what you're living, what you're struggling with, so that as we go and actually go and try and do these exercises that are going to give us information about customer experience or about your experience on this, we can actually do things that are going to make things better, not actually make some sort of research decision that makes things worse for you or for other different areas. So I think if people know you care and that you
Yes.
are truly trying to hear from them and truly trying to help and not just mandating from that ivory tower, right? Like, oh, the data says this, so now we're going to do XYZ, and everyone rolls their eyes, and even if it's the most brilliant plan, right? They're
Yes.
going to be like, oh, research and blah 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 or whatever, CX says this, and they don't know what I deal with on a daily basis. So again, it's just being engaged and just listening first before taking action.
I know that, and that is very true. Thank you, Katrina. That's a really good example. So it's really starting those conversations and bringing, this topic of come down from the ivory tower. What does that look like, right? It's so interesting because I remember, in my corporate roles, that there were occasions where it's actually mandated, for
Mm-hmm.
all of the product development teams and the products teams to listen to at least one call daily, or
Mm-hmm.
to scrub the survey data, and or to listen to some feedback. They had to have some touch point, and it became like a mechanism that, unfortunately, saying it didn't really drive behavior, right? So you have to also give back, like in saying, by doing this, what are you going to receive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So because people are already stretched in their time and their agenda, adding more to their plate has to come with a reward on what is it going to relieve for you. And
Mm-hmm.
insights don't come naturally all the time. You have to invest in it too. One
Yeah.
of my other, when I think about, anytime I hear this about, coming down from the ivory tower, I literally picture that this way. At the start of my career, when I was working with Toyota Motor Corporation, It was really coming down, from the top floor, the corporate floors, to actually being in the sales room.
Right.
And it was so interesting, walking in the sales floor, and actually, almost being just sitting and observing. And at that point, I had moved from being a researcher into actually being a marketing director. And I remember that it was, we were working on campaigns. We were dealing with competitors entering the market that were stealing some market share. And how do you deal with these things, right? And all of a sudden, it's like you go to the front floor, and I started observing the type of people that were walking in the room. And I
Mm-hmm.
found this individual who walked in with his entire family to pick up the car, and everyone was dressed on their Sunday best,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I could see the things that no survey and nothing else is going to tell you. And it gives me goosebumps, because all of a sudden it builds that empathy that you go like, this is a big deal for them.
Right.
And then you start thinking, and they're bringing, they've invested in this car. It's a big deal. How do you make that moment of truth? I'll talk about moment of truth, but seriously, I get goosebumps because I know exactly what that scenario looked like. And
Yeah.
you had, that his wife and the kids, and and probably the whole army of family coming through,
Yeah.
right? Like just in a very Latin fashion, right?
Yes.
And it was like, how do we make this a celebration for anyone picking up their car, right? So it's like, we had balloons for the kids, we had T-shirts for the kids, and we started kind of building, coloring books and all these things for them, but also, kind of taking a family picture and stuff. So it was those things that started giving us a differentiation point. So
Mm-hmm.
just interesting what one observation point can lead to actually building up that relationship with your customers, right?
No,
And we lose that these days. Of course, we have to do it all online or something, but there's still opportunity.
absolutely.
Anyway, it's a passionate topic for
Yes,
me.
and it's so good. It's so good because again, it's making something human out of, you know, what can feel so transactional, because it's
Yeah,
real life. And if nothing else that this COVID time has taught us, connection and real connection between human beings matters, and it's vital. It's vital. So
yeah.
it's awesome.
Absolutely. And we have a role as change makers. For those who are listening, if you are customer experience role, in employee experience role, if you are in user experience, in brand, if you're behind the scenes, writing policies or, technical writing, wherever role you're playing, at the end of the day, you think about, how does my job impact a human, right? How does my job touch and make a difference in it? And it's not necessarily just all altruistic. It does drive results, right?
Absolutely.
So our next principle, so we've touched on two principles already, and our next principle is about how do you involve others in the journey.
Mhm.
And we have heard it throughout these sessions, from the first session that was about how to bring people, how do you bring all voices to the table that Jumur talked about. We talked about bringing people along with the change, that Natalie talked about. And
Yeah.
then yesterday, Martine and Jonathan were talking about how do you make employees actually drive change, right?
Mhm.
In behaviors, right, in the call center.
Yeah.
And it really is about, we touched on it, that the knowledge of the tribe,
Mhm.
the change making. What's your take on this, Katrina?
Oh, it was so fabulous to hear all of them sharing that because it really just, I mean, it was fantastic how they talked about, talking to the folks on the front lines and talking to those managers. Again, that engagement piece, and then making sure that they were heard, and that it was brought back to them. And they said, okay, so this is what we're hearing. This is what this is. And here's how okay, so what's your take? And then they have input, and then that automatically correlates to then ownership, right? Because then they feel like they have been a part of driving this change. And so then it becomes less of this mandated thing that we've all just rolled out. I loved hearing them talk about the whole change management aspect, where they were saying, hey, we need to be mindful of how many changes people are coping with, and making, and making it
Yes.
fun. That was the other thing that I loved hearing, was they were making it fun. They were wanting to make it something that was a positive net experience, not just a here's our process improvement for this month. It was literally, here's how we're changing this, and look how much better it is for all of us. And so I think, that ownership and allyship, connection of prioritizing the humans, not just the customer, right? but also the employees, that just makes that real change. And it's because they know things. And when you incorporate them and they come with them on the journey, it's so much easier than if it's just mandated shifts.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think it's really about that empathy that is being built, but also the reward
Yeah.
aspect, right? Like the rewarding aspect of everybody. And we've heard this, I was in a session live with Oprah, right? Not that she was interviewing me yet. Thanks,
Right.
Oprah, if you're watching this. No, but actually, Oprah says it all the time, right? And if Oprah says it, it must be right. It's like, no, but we've heard this from many sources that it's like, everybody wants to be seen, everybody wants to be heard, right? And I mean, we can even just start with our own little small world in our homes, right? And it's
Yeah.
like it's a very challenging thing to practice sometimes. Then bring that up to scale, right? Where we have teams and we have corporations,
Mhm.
and how do you align and bring people along with that journey? It takes
Mhm.
commitment, it takes time and investment, right? But it's most importantly is you have to commit to it, right? You have to commit
Mhm.
to it. Can be a frustrating effort because in a world of instant gratification,
Mhm.
relationships don't, or change doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah.
right? And
And
if
I
something
love,
is going to be rewarding. Yeah.
yeah, and I love how the folks yesterday from Hydro-Quebec talked about, you mentioned how, oh, well, what about, doesn't this impact call center time? It's one of the metrics that you're constantly measuring as far as how often, how quickly a call can be resolved. And they're like, yes, yes, we know that was going to be impacted at least at first. And so again, aligning expectations and what you're measuring, because again, those behavior measurements are going to be impacting what people then choose to do, right? And so making sure that those pieces are aligned as well, because if the folks know, hey, we know this is going to take a little longer, but we're going to be looking at a different success metric, so that reward that you're talking about, that intrinsic reward, can be there for that behavioral change that's ultimately going to create a far better thing. And I loved how they were able to share, hey, we have had the best customer satisfaction scores we've ever had, but there was a shift that had to happen in what we were doing in order to get there, and everyone acknowledged that. And those intrinsic rewards were built in to say, we aren't going to expect you to still meet these particular things anymore. We're looking at something different for a while we implement this change. And I think those are so important, because people don't want to feel like they're going to take a hit from doing the right thing that you're telling them to do. So again, making sure you're aligning those metrics and aligning what you're measuring, and having their input is going to obviously help impact that and make sure it's correct. But those rewards are important, so yeah, that matters.
Absolutely, it does matter. Yes, and there are different ways to bring it about along the journey, and we'll talk about journeys specifically in a moment too, right?
Yes, yes, we will.
Yeah, and then the next principle, like the fourth principle and last principle we wanted to cover today about how to unlock that human-centric experience design is, we heard it also consistently,
Yep.
in all three sessions, is
Yep.
start small, show value, and then, Katrina, you say this word better than I can.
Reiterate.
Thank you. Thank you. I think it's a tongue twister for those who are like, English is a second language. It's
Yes,
like reiterate, reiterate.
yes,
So
yes,
reiterate, right? Let's have
yes,
some fun with that, with how I say it. But it's
exactly.
right. So it's like repeat, right?
Yep.
It's like,
Rinse, repeat.
watch, rinse, repeat, right?
Precisely.
Yeah.
Precisely. Yeah. And don't be, and that's the thing, is I love how it's like, don't be afraid to start small. Don't despise the day of small things, right?
Yes.
It's that starting with something that you like, this is a challenge. When you've looked at that whole elephant, right? When you go through that process and you, okay, I've looked at the big picture, I've talked to people, you start to hone in on, hey, here's a smaller problem that we can probably we can tackle this, right? Like, you know that you get a little core group together, and then you can show the value. You'll be able to, visualize the payoff of what, if we do this, then we can visualize where we will be. And then that payoff that matters to the business can then be a victory that you share. It may be a small victory, but it's a victory nonetheless. You can say, hey, look, we can quantify the value of what we were able to do. And then that acknowledges sharing those victories and acknowledging the wins, and those who helped, then it starts to build that momentum, and then it gets buy-in from
Yes.
leadership and further investment to work, and then it's that whole rinse repeat option, and then people get excited
Yes.
about, oh my gosh, yeah, I want that, and more parts of the organization want to be a part of it, and it can transform the culture, right, of an organization. That continuous learning, improvement, human centricity, not just customers but employees too, in that whole piece creates this energy, this kinetic energy towards, let's think about this first, right? Because we know it has a payoff. We've been able to quantify it, measure it before. How can we then do that again?
Yes. Well, and what a good example, to talk about, start small, show value, and then reiterate is that, that's why we're doing this 4X week. It's like, we're not waiting for perfection. We're not waiting to have, hundreds or thousands of audiences. It's like, let's get started, right?
Exactly.
Like, let's show value. Let's repeat. Let's adjust and repeat. And that's just one example that I'm using on my end here too. But we heard it, from Hydro Quebec yesterday, where it's like, let's start with one group of 15 people that naturally are
Yeah.
going to attract others, right? We've heard it, from Natalie, in the change management. It's like, let's start with a group of people that are going to be, those change agents, right? We're going to be those advocates there. And also Jumor said it really well, where it's like, sometimes the value of interviewing 6 people can give you as much value as the big data, right? It's like, one of the UX principles that she was sharing with us is that qualitative sometimes is just as valuable as the quantitative data, right? The statistical data or margin. I'm okay with a margin of error of plus or minus 10%. She said,
Right.
as long as I get a human talking to me, I'm sure I'm gonna be like 90% right on the
Yes,
right track.
yeah, and
Yeah.
it's amazing how those little shifts will matter. I know some of the stuff we worked on in the past,
Yeah.
where we've helped, some of our clients say, okay, this is what you're struggling with. Let's hear from the clients. Let's hear about those challenges. Let's hear about what matters, and then those conversations that springboard from that initial quantitative exercise, and then they see just amazing jumps in whether they're measuring whatever metric, net promoter or customer satisfaction or whatever. It matters, because then the exercise of even just engaging and asking can start to engenders people like, oh, you care, and then they see that you act on it, and then that makes them feel like, oh my gosh, I can trust you more. You are going to listen to me, and you are going to take action on the things that I have to say. And it matters, like when you reach out to certain brands, you have a much higher expectation now. If you are at Disney, right, and there's a challenge that you face, they're just known for handling something well, and when I'll see people give shout outs to other brands like Starbucks, like, oh, I had a problem, we didn't get my stars, for whatever, and then they handled it, and look what they sent me, and they'll post it on social media. And that, again, it's all of those different touch points, like you said, moments of truth, whether it's a particular challenge or you heard me and you addressed my challenge. It matters, because people then say, okay, I can put my trust in you. It's bigger than just a transaction. It is a relationship that then that person has with the company and with the brand.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like placing value really in that, right? And the operational, the operational benefits follow.
Mhm.
There's so much research on that. We can touch on it, in many different areas. But we've really connected today on those 4 principles
Yes.
on human-centric experience design, right? It's like, it sounds like a mumbo jumble of words, but what it really means is that it's like really it's that is what it's all about, right?
Mhm.
It's the human at the center of what we do, and how much the connection matters. Because really, if you're on a B2C or a B2B business, you're still going to be working with humans and for humans and serving that greater purpose too, right?
Yep.
So thank you so much for joining me today here, Katrina, and in all of your insights as well, sharing it with the audience and what you took away from all the conversations that doing 4X week. I know you've been working really hard on behind the scenes here.
Oh yes, no, it's been an absolute pleasure, and I love talking about this stuff. So it's so much fun. It is
Yes.
such a personal, like I said, it's our passion. It's our passion.
It is our passion, right? So it's like, Once again, what's our passion? Aligning what? People,
People, data, and systems.
people, data, and systems, because systems don't drive necessarily customer experiences. The people and
Mm-hmm.
data alone is not going to provoke change. It's the alignment of all three, right? To give
Yep.
that cohesive experience too.
Mm-hmm.
So with that, I want to thank our audience, those who are watching or listening, to thank you so much for joining us on 4X Week. And we hope you enjoyed hearing from our amazing panelists and our summary of the 4 principles to unlock human-centric experiences and how do you grow your business. So speaking of connection, we want to connect with you. And if 4X Week has resonated with you, join us again at the 4X roundtable. So you can find us at 4experience.com/roundtable and sign up. It's free. It's like you go there and we'll keep you sharing. But we have also a very special treat for those who have been watching and listening as well. And it is that we will be hosting regular workshops. And our next workshop coming up is related to journey mapping.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to be on the list and get notified when we're going to be delivering, this specific, exclusive workshop for those members of the 4Experience Roundtable, you can go to 4experience.com/journey maps. That easy, right? It's that easy. You click there, put your name, your email address, and then we will notify you once we have, when we're going live with it as well. And, you can sit with us also, and we look forward, to talking to you again and seeing you on the roundtable as well. So please like, comment, share. Okay.
Thank you so much, Cory. It's been fantastic. Look forward to next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye now.